Hi everyone, Liz here, and I'm so excited for today's nail audit. This is a really good one. I wanted to give a big thank you to Kora for submitting this nail audit request. So let me go into what Kora submitted to me. So Kora wrote to me and she did include a picture. Unfortunately, the picture is from her client and it's not the best quality. It's funny how nail clients tend to not be the best photographers, but that's okay. So the description that she sent me was, a client of mine sent this photo. She said her natural nail is separating from the gel. I did an overlay with acrygel on the free edge and built the nails with gel in the bottle. She is working with a lot of detergents and water. She doesn't use gloves. Her hands are overly dry. Her proximal nail fold is always overgrowing as well. It happens only to her. Is it because of the chemicals she's working with, or am I doing something wrong? So this is a really good question, Kora, and thank you so much for submitting this. And let me show you guys real quick the photo that the client submitted to Kora showing that she chipped her nail here on the corner. So it's very difficult to see. It's very overexposed as far as the photo is concerned because there's flash on here. But if you look at this upper corner of her nail, you can see that some of the product has chipped off and there's some nail exposed there. Now, I'm assuming that this is an overlay on her natural nails. And so today we're going to talk about what is causing this, how we prevent it, and some suggestions for Kora for maybe being able to fix this for this particular client. So let's start off with one of my favorite analogies when we're talking about the natural nail plate. I like to always think of the natural nail plate like a sponge. So natural nails are able to absorb water and they're also able to get really dehydrated. So once the nail dries out, they are going to kind of become curled, misshapen, and a little bit hard. So if you've ever bathed and then trimmed your nails right after you've bathed, you'll notice that your nails are super pliable, super soft, super flexible, and it's much easier to trim toenails or fingernails after you've had them in water. After they dry out, they get a little bit misshapen. So if you've ever had a really, really hardened, dry, crusty sponge that's just rock solid, that's exactly kind of what our natural nail goes through as well when it gets dehydrated. So it kind of starts to curl and harden and pinch in. And if the product is not susceptible to the same shrinking and swelling, then the only part of our overlay surface that's shrinking and swelling is the natural nail underneath. So I want you guys to think about, we have this kind of rigid or semi-rigid product on top. It could be slightly flexible depending on the gel that we've chosen or the product that we've chosen. But in general, this product is going to be less flexible than this client's natural nail. And if the natural nail is dehydrating and shrinking and then swelling with water, that shrinking and swelling and shrinking and swelling is going to kind of work itself away from the product underneath. And this is where cuticle oil comes into play. It is almost impossible to get clients to actually religiously apply cuticle oil, but I think it's because people don't truly understand the role that cuticle oil plays. It isn't just for making your skin look nice on top or because your nail tech says you need to do it. It's actually because it fills in those gaps, those spongy kind of gaps inside of our nail plate, which our nail plate does kind of look like a sponge. It kind of goes inside of our nail plate and it creates a barrier to water. So our nail plate is no longer able to absorb water, which means it's no longer going to swell with water and it's not going to get as dehydrated and curl away from product. So actually, beyond the cuticle area where we want our skin to look nice on top, the main place I tell people to put cuticle oil or even some type of salve that's a little bit thicker and stays in place a little bit better is to put it right underneath your actual fingernails. So I always recommend people do this at nighttime, right before bed. And I also usually tell them, cuticle oil, if you don't like it because it gets all over the place and it's a little bit messy, too liquidy for you, go for something a little bit thicker, like an Aquifer, a Vaseline, any type of ointment salve that you're going to be able to mush underneath your fingernails and around them, and it's not going to melt all down your hand and get all over the place. And you can actually even just scrape off some right on the end of longer fingernails, and it really doesn't go anywhere. And when you wake up in the morning, your fingernails look beautiful, and your natural nails are actually now full of that emollient, and you're not going to be able to get water in there. So depending on how you feel about, synthetic type emollients versus natural ones, you can also use like lanolin based products if you like those kind of natural animal oils, whatever you want to use. But there's, a vast array of products that you can use for that. One of my favorite ointments that I use for my nails is called Bag Balm. I grew up with it because I grew up on a cattle farm, so I was very familiar with Bag Balm. And basically, it is a similar product to like a Vaseline, except it has some extra moisturizing ingredients in there. So I really like that. Some people love Aquifer, some people love just regular old Vaseline, some people love different cuticle oils. You can get wild with the different moisturizing agents, but I do recommend that it's something oily like that so that it actually gets inside of your nail plate and creates that barrier to water. So that's going to really help this client. But I would argue that this client, because of the way that they're sending in a text message and saying my nail already chipped and they're a little ticked off, if you reply with just, hey, use cuticle oil, they're not going to be super stoked, and I don't think you're going to get exactly the reaction that you're looking for. But it is really important to push cuticle oil. I'm telling you, if there's one thing to push on your clients, it is some type of moisturizing product like cuticle oil, and get them to do it every single night before bed, and it will absolutely change their nails like night and day. It's crazy. You'll have clients that go from their nails lasting a week to lasting over 2 just by using cuticle oil. So it's a great trick to tell people, if you want your services to last longer, use a cuticle oil or use some kind of emollient like Aquifer or whatever. It's also, nail techs are usually not the type of people, in my experience, that like to sell to people. I find that creative people have a harder time being salespeople. But if you feel up to the challenge, and honestly, this isn't something that you're just selling to somebody, this is actually something that's going to make a huge difference in their services, get yourself some little tubes of Aquifer or whatever your favorite product is. You can even find homemade ones on Etsy. You can support some other small business by doing this. There's lots of cool things that you can do with this whole idea. But I would recommend you actually either gift those as part of your premium service to your clients, or sell them to your clients as part of that experience. And by being able to explain how our nails are like a sponge and giving the client that visual of what a dried out rock hard sponge looks like, your client's gonna automatically understand the importance of having that barrier to water inside of their natural nail and how that's going to actually make their services last longer, which makes them see little dollar signs. So that's a really great technique for that. But let's also talk about one other part of this that I think is happening with Kora's client. So Kora wrote into me and said she's using an acrogel. So this is like a poly gel, an acrogel for the actual extension or the actual bottom part of the overlay. I'm assuming the acrogel is being used because it doesn't run all over the place, and so it's probably creating a very rigid and also very controllable product for Kora to apply. Maybe she is trying to extend a couple of the nails, so she's using that as the same product. Acrogel is basically acrylic powder mixed with a gel product. And acrylic powder can basically be way more rigid than gel itself. Those acrylic particles, those polymer particles, are not actually being dissolved inside of the gel. They're just kind of being mixed inside of it to create almost like a dough. And so it's not going to be as flexible as an actual liquid gel product. So that could be part of the issue, which is on top of Kora's client's nail kind of swelling and shrinking, the product that's being used on top of that natural nail might be a little too rigid for this particular client's wear and tear. So it's kind of a balance between telling the client, hey, part of this is wear and tear, and if you take better care of your nails, your services are going to last longer. But then on the other side is actually choosing a product that's going to be able to withstand more wear and tear for clients that really are hard on their nails. And I actually had a similar situation where I had a client back in the day that was a dog washer, and her nails were always in water. It was crazy how much water her nails were exposed to because she was always scrubbing and washing dogs. And she told me, I try to wear gloves, but they just seem to get in the way and I always end up ripping them off. And so her nails were just being exposed. Hairdressers are like that too. So it's not just clients being sort of ignorant to their nails. Sometimes it's just what people have to do with their hands. And there are products that we can choose that work better for those types of people. So definitely a more flexible product is what I would recommend. And flexibility tests, you can do just smear some product on a nail form backing or even on a nail form itself or some parchment paper, wax paper, anything. Cure it, play around with it like I've shown in my previous videos and see if it actually will bend and flex, okay? Now, sticking with that idea, there's also the flimsiness of the natural nail that comes into play too. So natural nails, the more that they lift, then we have to be filing them, re-prepping them, reapplying product. And so by the time a client gets some natural length going with that overlay, the tip of their finger, the tip of their natural fingernail might be paper thin. So I have some paper here, and I chose brown just so you guys can actually see it on camera. Now, my cutting board is blue, so I hope it doesn't blend in with the background too much, but I wanted to use this as the example of our gel, okay, or whatever product we're putting on top. It could be anything, but this reminds me of gel because it does have some flexibility to it, but it also has some memory, right? Like it inherently wants to be kind of stiff, and so we're forcing it to create this kind of curved shape. Depending on how we are applying the product, and if we're not pinching the nail or anything, we're probably dealing with a very, very flat overlay, something like this, okay? So if we add some curvature to it, that's gonna help protect those corners of our nails. If we're just doing kind of a natural nail overlay and we're not pinching the nail at all, we're not worrying about the sidewalls or the corners, we're gonna end up with kind of a flat overlay just like this underneath. And you can tell that just by looking at the C-curve underneath the actual nail. So if I use this paper to demonstrate what my natural nail is, here's also what can happen. Okay, so in the beginning, if this is the underside, let me back up a little bit. If this is the underside of our artificial nail, okay, so basically it would be something like this where we've got our natural nail underneath the product, we've got our gel on top, and our natural nail is underneath. The challenge becomes that in the beginning, we have product maybe that because we've capped the edge of our nail, we're capping the free edge as we're applying product, we're gonna have maybe like a teeny little millimeter of product that extends out past the natural nail, right? In the very beginning, right when the manicure is fresh, we're gonna have this little edge of gel or acrygel or acrylic or whatever it might be. Now this becomes more important with acrygel products or with gel products because they do tend to wear down. But acrylic is a little rigid, so it's kind of one of those trade-offs where if we want a flexible product, more flexible products usually are going to wear faster on the edges, especially if a client is using their nails like a tool. So freshly, we're gonna have this little perimeter of gel sticking right out past the free edge of the nail because we've capped, we've done all of that, it's there. But as the client wears the free edge of their nail, okay, so like this is their nail, as they wear down the edge of their nail, this natural nail is going to become exposed a little bit, okay? So here is basically what's happening. So I've got the gel here, and pretty soon what happens is the natural nail starts to get exposed. And this is like microscopically visible, but this is basically what happens to clients that are very hard on their nails. My mom is one of them, my sister-in-law is another. I have put black on them before so that I can actually see where the black is wearing off. And I'm telling you, within 24 hours, my mom has already worn through the edges of her gel and it's already starting to expose the nail and that base layer of product underneath. So it's pretty crazy how fast this can actually happen. So what happens is now we've got corners exposed, especially on square nails. So if I have this client where I have this natural nail underneath this product, but the natural nail is starting to become exposed, what happens is as that client starts to use their nails, the corners become exposed. Now those are starting to flap. And if something is rubbing on this natural nail, it's going to basically do that thing where your natural nail curves in, and now I've got this corner is now detaching from the actual product. And if you guys have ever had this happen to yourselves before or to someone else, you know exactly what I'm talking about, which is it's like the gel just starts to separate and now you have this gap right here on one of the corners, and now you can even get dirt and all kinds of stuff in between the natural nail and the product. So this becomes more probable when we are using a really rigid product that isn't bending and flexing with that nail as it's swelling and dehydrating, right? So the product basically works itself away from the natural nail underneath or vice versa, okay? So we've got this, and then what's happening is as this is not moving that much and this is moving a lot, those corners are now going to start to separate, and then this is going to get hit by something and it's going to peel and snap off, just like Kora's client showed her in that picture. So, couple recommendations. First, I would recommend not using a super rigid product like Acrogel, and maybe using a more flexible product. I would recommend shortening the client's nails a little bit to get rid of that super thin natural nail that might be on the end. So as these get really, really thin, the natural nail gets really, really thin, it's much easier for it to do that kind of thing where it just loses a corner, it bends in, now you've got this kind of flap hanging out there, and water, dirt, all that kind of stuff is going to start to get in between, and it's going to separate from the product. So a more flexible product is going to help with that. I would also recommend for clients that are extremely hard on their nails to talk them into not doing square or squoval. Round, almond, oval nails are going to last so much better than square nails, especially on nails that people are very, very hard on. Because there's no corners, it's going to be able to take a beating a little bit more. The cuticle oil is going to help their nail not swell and dehydrate as much, which is going to prevent the nail from working away from the product on top. And really, I don't see anything wrong with Kora's actual application. I mean, it's just a natural nail overlay, but you could actually be creating more of an extension past the end of the natural nail to give that nail more product to wear down. So instead of just capping the free edge with product and having this teeny tiny little edge, and obviously this is exaggerated for you guys, but I mean, less than a millimeter is usually what we have on the end of the natural nail. You could even do more of kind of like an extension on those nails, especially on nails like pointers, thumbs, middle fingers. And that way the client has that much more product to actually wear through before they start touching their natural nail underneath. So it's almost like we're encapsulating their natural nail in product. And that usually really helps. And this is important not only on the free edge, but on the side walls, because the side walls can also be curling in and they're going to work themselves away from the product too. So in general, this comes down to probably three major things. One, the client's wear and tear on their nails and then maintaining the service between appointments. So that's going to come down to, again, that cuticle oil recommendation. And then also the second thing is going to be the rigidity of the product that you're using on the person's nail, and also changing the shape of the actual product on that natural nail. And then third would be extending the product past the natural nail a little bit more if you can. Now, when we pinch, we're actually able to bring product lower than the natural nail is. That's why pinching also becomes very key. But for a natural nail overlay client, it's very difficult to do that. So I would recommend just extending past. If you're using something like Acrogel and it works for all of your other clients, that's totally fine. Just maybe pat it a little bit further past the end of her fingernail so she has kind of this edge around, okay, that she's going to be able to wear through without touching her natural nail and without having that ability to kind of catch her natural nail on the corners and have that flick and work away over time. All right. So Kora, I hope this video helps you. This is something that is extremely common, so I don't want you to feel like you're alone. And the other thing too that we need to really focus on as technicians and as service providers is if you have 70 clients, for example, that all are able to have the same product applied to their nails and everything works wonderful for you, and you have that one person that it just doesn't work for, don't completely undo your entire process because of one person, okay? So don't start to doubt all of your other services and all of your other product usage because of this one person, because they are what's called an outlier. They don't fit within our bell curve of people. They actually are sticking out all by themselves, and we don't want to change what's working for the whole entire group just because of this one person. So I recommend testing out some different things for this one person, but ultimately, if the client is not able to actually take care of their nails in a way that works for them, that's also part of the responsibility of the client as well. There is no nail product on the planet that is going to permanently adhere to the natural nail without actually taking a beating through wear and tear. There is just not one. And the more you try to reach for products that are going to promise that amazing adhesion and just kind of like it'll go through a nuclear blast and the nails will still stay on. The problem with those kind of products is that you're actually sacrificing the integrity of the formula. So now you're choosing something that is extremely high in monomer, extremely that's why people reached for things like MMA acrylic, because it just glued onto the nail like concrete. But there's trade-offs with stuff like that. One is the actual health of the person and the nails that we're working on. And two is the ability for that product to release. We actually do want the product to release if there's too much force being applied to the natural nail. And that was one of the issues we had with MMA acrylic in the past, is that it adhered so well that if someone actually injured their nail, the product wouldn't pop off. It would actually rip their whole finger out of their nail bed. So there's these kind of fine lines we need to walk, where we need to find something that works for us and solves a problem, but we don't want to go so far down that path that now we're actually choosing something that is not a healthy choice. So that's my recommendation there, just because I know a lot of you guys are probably sometimes very frustrated with maybe the performance of a product, or maybe you have this one person that nothing seems to last. Don't go turning your whole world upside down just for that one person. Definitely try some things, experiment, but at the end of the day, stay true to the integrity of your services and your products. And like I said, don't change what works for everybody else just for that one person. All right. So I hope that helps, Kora. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for today's nail audit video. I have a whole list of people that have been submitting nail audit videos to me. If you guys would like to submit your own nail audit request, all you have to do is go to thenailaudit.com, fill out my form, upload some videos or pictures for me and a detailed description of what you're dealing with, and I will create a detailed video response to address your question or concern. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.